All right. So LightARchitect is our lighting design software. It's available on both iOS and then also as a web app that's available on your laptop or any device that you can access a browser. And it uses the same login for both devices. So you go in and create a free account. It just gets you access to our website. And then from there you can log in. If you want to follow along, the website is lightarchitectapp.com. And if you ever forget the address, you can always go to the Cooper Lighting website and check under resources to find the link. It'll take you to a Get Started page that goes over a little bit about how to use the app and some of the new features that have been launched. And from here, you can start a new project or you can open a project. So we'll start off and do a demo project here. And we'll use the Cooper Lighting offices as a sample. So this just uses Google Maps, so if you're searching for a location the same way that you would on your phone when you're using it for navigation, and then you can use the map to place light fixtures. One advantage of using the satellite view like this is that you can see the shadows of existing poles if you're working on a retrofit. So you can kind of see that on this screen here. So once you've located your site and you've zoomed in and you've figured out where you are, this left-hand side menu is going to have everything you need to start working on your design. So this big add button here on the side will pull up a few options, and we'll go through some of these kind of markup options at the bottom in a minute, but we'll start out just with adding a fixture. And when you hit Fixture, it pulls up the catalog of all of our products. And you can search for products here. You can check by compliance and availability. And we'll add a gallon fixture to this parking lot. So when you click on the product icon, it'll place this little fixture icon on the map that's meant to kind of look like a pole with a mounting head if you were looking on it from above. So it'll indicate which direction you're facing. And you can click on that to drag it around and move it around on the screen. And in this case, we'll kind of line it up with one of these existing poles in this parking lot. And then over here on the right-hand menu, this will provide all of your options for configuring the fixture. So from here, you can rotate it, and we'll rotate it to line it up with the parking lot. You can change the mounting height. By default, it'll be set to a standard mounting height for the type of fixture that you've added. You can also tilt it if you need to be able to aim. And then you can change things like the number of heads and the length of mounting arms. We'll do 2 heads back to back for this one, so 2 and then 180 degrees. And you can see that the icon on the map is updated now to show that there are multiple mounting heads. If we added more heads, you can see it'll add more here. And then the last option here is the IES file. So this will contain information like your color temperature, the wattage, the optic that you want to use. So if you click change on this one, it'll pull up a menu with all of the different IES files, and this can be a little overwhelming. Some of these have, you can see thousands of files here, but we have filter options on the side. So if you know you want 4,000 Kelvin for the color temperature, maybe we're looking for something around 200 watts, we can select that range here, and maybe we want to type 5. So it narrows down your options here. And let's go on, that's kind of close to what we're looking for. And then select it and say use selected. So it's now swapped that file out. It'll use that same configuration for both of these mounting heads on this fixture. And now that we have this one all configured the way that we want to use it, we can create copies of it. So if you go back to the right-hand menu again, you have some options here, including copy. So if we hit copy, it'll add another icon to the map, and we'll create a couple of these, and then I'll drag them into place. Here we can line these up on some of the other islands in this parking lot. We'll add a couple more. All right, so now we have a small design all laid out. The next step is to get photometrics. So returning to this left-hand side menu, right below add, you have calculate. And if we hit calculate, it'll come up with an option here. You can either change the settings, and I'll go over that after we do this initial calculation, or you can hit calculate now. So by default, when you hit calculate now, the values that are displayed go up to a 20:1 max-min ratio. So if we look at this photometric summary here, it describes some of the details about the calculation. This is showing illuminance. It tells you the light loss factor that was used, the average, then a couple of the uniformity values. So you can see here we've got about 20, and that's where it's cutting off which values are displayed. Let's say you wanted to highlight a specific area. Maybe this is you just want to see what the values are like in the parking lot so you can get a more accurate uniformity value. To be able to do that, we can hit the boundary button. And then from here, you have two different options. You can add a stat area, so we'll do that first. So this creates a statistical area, and you can click on the map to create corners and draw out a shape. And then from here, it'll create a boundary, and you can name it. So we'll say maybe this is employee parking, and then save it. And we could do a calculation again. So if you hit recalc up here on the summary, or you can go back to the calculate menu and hit calculate now. Now it's limited to that boundary that we drew out, and it'll give you more accurate uniformity values specific to the area that you want to look at. You can also draw multiples of these areas. So let's say you also kind of maybe you want to see there's some houses over here and you want to see what the spill light is on the back side of the parking lot over here. If we go back to boundary, you can hit add stat area and create another stat area. So click the screen and it'll draw out another boundary. We'll call this one spill light. And then hit save, and we'll hit recalculate again. And it will add another section to your photometric summary here, as well as change the values that are displayed. So you can see, we've got pretty low spill light in this area, and you can send this as a PDF report, which I'll show in a second here. And another thing you can do with this boundary area, we've recently added something that we're calling exclusions. This is kind of makes it easier to draw out areas if you want to be able to remove a space. So let's say we were doing this whole parking lot all the way around the building and you wanted to just cut the building out of it without having to draw a bunch of little corners all the way around the building. We'll pretend maybe there's a building over here on this side of the parking lot. And you can say add exclusion. And this works the same way as the boundaries. You just draw out an area. And in this case, it'll just remove these values right here that it's overlapping with so that they're not included in your calculations. So we'll recalculate it. And you can see it's cut that little area out. If we have a building there, maybe that was in the way. It won't block light. So if you had another stat area on the back side of this space that we're treating as a building right now, it would be treated as if the building wasn't, as if there's no building there. This is just used to remove points. So from here, maybe you've got your design finished and you're ready to share it. You can hit Get PDF on the photometric summary, and it will populate an email for you with information about all the fixtures you added, so a full bill of materials, and then a screenshot of the design you created. And when you share this, it will also create a PDF that shows what the design looks like. So I can share a sample PDF. Let's see, we'll just go ahead and I'll send this to myself. So the PDF will contain the same schedule that describes the fixtures and how they're positioned. It'll also have the calculation summary that shows up overlaid on top of the map that we were looking at with the uniformity values and the average and so on. And it'll also have the latitude and longitude of the site where you were working and where all of the fixtures were positioned. Get my email a second to load that. All right, let me show you what the PDF looks like. All right, so it'll have an author label at the top that has the name that's attached to your account and your email. And for contact information, it'll have the location, so this is the address of the office, information on the stat area, the statistics for each of those stat areas that we created, and then a schedule of all the fixtures, along with an image of the photometrics that we just created. All right, let me clear this out and we can do another example. Gotta pick a different area of the lot. Now, if we go back into add and then fixture, if you look at the category options we have on the side or scroll across the top, there is an HID category. And this has some of our older HID fixtures that can be used for reference. So let's say you're going to a site and you want to show them what it would look like with their current HID fixtures and then how it would look like if they'd upgraded to LED. So it won't have it won't have a full range of all the fixtures, but you can find similar options that would match with existing HID fixtures. So let's say for this parking lot, we were going to do a Galleria area light. So we'll click on that and it will add an area light to the parking lot. And then again, if you click it to select it, it'll pull up this right-hand side menu for configuration options. We'll just rotate it to line it up with the parking lot. And maybe we'll do 2 mounting heads again, back to back. Now, if we go check, it looks like we have, so this is 283 watts right now. So we'll create a copy and then we'll swap it out with a similar wattage LED fixture and see what the difference is. So we'll just do it with these 2 fixtures right now. On the side menu, we'll go back to boundary and then add stat area and outline this parking lot. And do a calculation. So I'll show the calculation settings this time. If you hit change settings, you can kind of set some guidelines here. So you can set the light loss factor, and it'll have some information about the typical light loss factors that are used for different situations. You can also change the grid size. So that's when we did a calculation, each little square is 10 feet by 10 feet. If you wanted more detail, you could, or if you wanted the calculations to be faster, you could increase it. If you want more detail, you can decrease it to about 5 feet by 5 feet. And it'll also have some information about guidelines for different types of design. So in this case, you can view the guidelines for parking lots. And then we'll hit calculate. You can see that it's a little more detailed this time because we decreased the size of each of these little squares. And then we've got our statistics here with our max to min ratio. And from here, if we want to swap them out and show what LEDs look like, you can go into multi-select right below calculate on the left-hand side. And if we had a bunch of fixtures, it would select everything that you had on the screen, and then it gives you more information about the specific fixtures you have selected, and then we can swap these all out at once and replace them with LEDs. So if you hit swap selected up here at the top, it'll pull up the fixture catalog again, and we'll do a Galleon again as an equivalent to swap out with these Gallerias. So now let's replace those fixtures that we already used. Let's try and change the IES file to see if we can get a similar wattage to what we already had. So if we hit this little 3-dot menu next to the name of the fixture, it'll give you some options. So edit, copy, you can swap them out, and we'll hit edit, and then the edit button next to the IES file name to open that catalog up. And let's see if we can find one. I think our Gallerias were about 283 watts. So we'll pick a similar fixture. We'll do this 269 one. Here we go. So you've selected, and then we can do a calculation again. And this will save your settings from the previous calculation. So if you wanted to change them back, you'd have to open this up again. We'll calculate with those same settings. All right, so you can already kind of see that the uniformity is much better with these LED fixtures. And that's partly, we might have picked different optics for the Gallerias, but it's a quick way to show a comparison between old fixtures and new fixtures. Some other features we can kind of highlight here. If you want to be able to measure how far apart the fixtures are, or if you need to be able to mark the distance to the closest transformer, if you drag the fixtures, you can see it'll give you the distance there to the nearest fixture. So this one's about 150 feet apart. And then we can add kind of markup items to this map. If we go back to add, below fixture, you have some options here. You can add symbols, so like icons to mark important features on the map. You can add arrows. You can add labels. So we'll go to a symbol and add a transformer. and it'll give you this little electrical symbol, and let's say the nearest transformer is over here, and you want to mark how far that is to the fixture. So we can go into the measuring tool on the left-hand side and create a new measurement, and you just click the 2 points that you want to measure between, and then it'll tell you it's about 180 feet apart, and when you export this, this will be included in all these markups you've added will be included in the image that's exported. We could also go in and add a label, just to make sure that we know what this is. Another feature we added recently was the ruler. So this is if you want to get kind of more specific with like tick marks and distances. If you wanted, you can also drag these around on the map to reposition them if you just want a scale bar that shows up. So we'll clear out this design. If we go back to the add feature, the next thing that you'll see below fixture is sports. So these are sports templates. If you've done any sport lighting, you know that these designs can be pretty complex with dozens of fixtures, multiple fixtures per pole. So rather than individually adding all of the fixtures to create a sports design in the app, we have some standardized templates based on standard field sizes. So we'll go over to this sports complex nearby. Zoom in a little bit. So if you hit sports from here, it'll pull up a number of different sports options. We want baseball in this case, so we'll click on baseball. And instead of adding a fixture, it now adds kind of an outline of the sports field itself that you can line up with what you see in the satellite imagery on the map. So if you select it, you can drag it around, and then we get some options on the side here. So we can try to position it to match up with the field that we see. So we can rotate this, and it looks like we need it to be a little bit bigger. So for the baseball field, and each sport will be a little bit different with the configuration options, but in this case, it gives you the field distance, which is the distance from the foul poles to center field. So if we increase that, you can see the icon on the map gets a little bit bigger. We can also change the foot candle levels that we want. So this will be infield versus outfield in this case for baseball. So if we increase that a little bit, that looks similar to, I think, the field size that we have here, and we'll line it up. Now if you hit calculate, it's basically processing each of these little red dots here represents a pole that has multiple fixtures on it, and it'll calculate for all of those fixtures. And give you a quick idea of how baseball field is lit up. Now, if you export this similar to what we did earlier, right now you can't see how many fixtures there are in each pole or how they're positioned, but it will output that into a table in the PDF that you'll receive that describes what IES is used for each fixture, how many fixtures there are of each type, and how they're all positioned. And you can also do multiple fields at a time. So we could add another baseball field in. We go back to sports and baseball, and we can do one of these smaller fields that's on the side here. Rotate that and increase the field size a bit. And then we could do a calculation that included both of them. So you could do this whole sports complex with the soccer fields and the baseball fields. All right. One more thing, we'll keep covering some of these options that are in this add menu here. So what I've shown so far is useful if you're working on a retrofit and you can actually see the site that you're working on in satellite imagery. But what if you're working on a new site and there's nothing to view on the map? So if we clear this out, let's say nearby, we've got some areas that are just trees and we have a new development here, but we can't see anything on the map right now. You can import a site plan. So if you go to add and then right below sports, hit site plan, it'll pull up a menu that lets you attach an image or a PDF. If you import a PDF, it'll just select the first page of the PDF, and this will add it to the map. So we've got a sample site plan here. For the site plan, if you want to move it, you have to click this icon at the top corner right here to drag it around, and it'll default add one of those rulers that I showed that you can use to help scale if you have a scale on your blueprint here. If we want to make it bigger, you drag from the corner here. To rotate, you click this rotate icon, and we'll make it parallel to the road. Drag it a little closer. And then from here, you can also increase and decrease the opacity. So if you wanted to be pretty solid so that you can see the design well, or if you want to see a little bit of the satellite imagery underneath, you can decrease it. And then this works exactly the same way as just adding fixtures on top of the map. So if we go back to add, we can hit fixture, and then add another fixture. Add some fixtures between these islands on the parking lot. And draw out another boundary around this design that we've created here. Parking, and then just to show it again, we'll go back to boundary and then add exclusion to hide this building here so that it doesn't show up in our calculations. And we'll outline the building, and then now we can hit calculate again. All right, then you can export this, and it'll include the blueprint that you've uploaded to show what the design looks like. I'm going to show one more thing with calculations that I haven't covered yet. So if you have a boundary, it cuts off the values that are shown based on that boundary that you outlined. But if you're trying to meet, if you want to see which areas meet a certain uniformity, let me delete some things so that we can see a little bit better here. All right, so if we don't have any boundaries on the screen and we go to calculate and change settings, you get some options that aren't there when you have the boundary that define where it cuts off the values that are shown. So you can select if you're trying to show a certain max to min ratio. So by default, like I said, it's set to 20 to 1, but maybe you want to see 15 to 1 as a standard for parking lots, and you can recalculate. And it'll show you where that 15 to 1 uniformity cuts off. And then we can go back to the settings, and the second option is minimum value. So if you're trying to meet a certain minimum foot candle value, you can set that here and then hit calculate and see how far it reaches out if you're trying to reach 0.1 foot candles in this case. All right, so that's some options there. One thing to note, it'll save your project for you so you can go back into your old designs and reopen them. Another option that we've added recently is the ability to import KMZ or KML files. These are commonly used with satellite design software, where it'll basically just list out the latitude and longitudes of the fixtures that you're using. You can also export that. So if we export our current design, you can pick KML, and it'll save that project, it'll save that file automatically to your computer. And then if we wanted to go in and import a KML file, it'll pull up your file explorer, and we'll just reopen that project we created so we can show that it saved it. So we open, it just pulled up the design that we had just created. Now, this mostly just accounts for the location of the fixtures, so by default, it'll just set it to a galleon fixture, and it won't have information, for example, on the orientation of the fixtures. So right now, they're all facing north. But it's a good way if you have a file that marks up the locations of poles if you've done a site audit, you can upload them into the app and then go in and customize them to the fixtures that you want to get a design. We've also added at the very bottom on the right-hand menu a tips menu. So this we kind of showed this was included in the settings, but you can view the IES recommendations for parking lots, for auto dealers, and for sports fields here. All right, for this training, we also have videos up on our Cooper Lighting YouTube channel that go over how some basics of how to use the app, and we're also available to do additional trainings.